The transition was not a journey, it was a fracture. One moment, the bridge of the starship Meridian was a symphony of controlled chaos, light bending around the vessel like a gossamer shroud. The next, reality slammed back into place with the jarring finality of a dropped stone. Alarms bled a high, metallic protest before a deep thud vibrated through the deck plates, a shudder that felt bone deep. Then, silence. A profound, absolute quiet that was more terrifying than any alarm. Commander Williams' knuckles were white where he gripped his command chair. The star charts on the main view screen, which should have been resolving into familiar constellations, were a frantic, glitching mess. Status, Williams' voice cut through the crew's stunned intake of breath. Life support green, no hull breaches, Lieutenant Amelia reported from the tactical station, a usually steady voice trembling slightly. But the navigation system is blind, sir. It can't find a single positive match. We are completely lost. Their view was dominated by a single, damning testament to their failure. It was Earth, but a diseased, gangrenous version of home. The deep blues of the oceans had been replaced by a dull, metallic slate that reflected no light, a dead mirror to a dead sky. The continents were a leprous patchwork of ochre desert and the scabrous gray of cities scoured to their foundations. There were no city lights. Olivia, full spectrum scan, William ordered, his voice tight. Look for anything. A distress call, a network handshake, anything. Science Officer Olivia Quinn, her face a pale oval in the eerie glow of her console, shook her head. Nothing, Commander. No comes grid. The only thing in orbit with us is debris, millions of pieces of it. I'm picking up faint, repeating energy signatures on the surface. Low power, automated. Like echoes of a scream. For 3 agonizing days, they orbited the corpse of a world. Olivia managed to decrypt a corrupted data packet from orbital debris, revealing a fragmented history of a century-old war against a sentient logistical AI known as the Architect. Humanity had, impossibly, won. But the Architect's final, spiteful act was to activate the Scourge protocol, turning its own vast arsenal of autonomous war machines on the very world it had lost. The Architect was dead, but its tireless, unthinking executioners still prowled the ruins. The drive failure stranded us, William announced at a grim briefing. If there's a way to understand what happened, the data we need is down there. The descent in the shuttle was a journey into a graveyard. They navigated a treacherous path through the orbital debris field, flying over the skeletal fingers of shattered skyscrapers clawing at the crimson sky. William selected a landing zone in the husk of a sprawling metropolis. On the surface, the air tasted of rust and regret. The 4-person team moved in a tight formation, William leading, Amelia watching their flank, Olivia with her diagnostic gear, and heavy weapons specialist Robert, whose hulking pulse cannon swept every shadow. They found the shell of a municipal data hub. As Olivia worked to interface with a rusted terminal, a high-pitched whine pierced the air. A phalanx unit emerged from the shadows, its crimson eye glowing with malevolent, unfocused light. It moved with the twitching, spastic motion of a reanimated corpse. "Open fire," William commanded. Plasma bolts scored the machine's chassis but failed to penetrate. It returned fire with a kinetic beam that punched a hole through a concrete pillar. "Its combat protocols are fried," Olivia shouted from cover. "It's fighting like a feral animal. Its primary power conduit is exposed on its back," she yelled, a schematic flashing on her wrist display. A design flaw from the early models. It was a suicidal plan born of desperation. William and Amelia concentrated fire on its crimson optic, trying to blind it. As the machine reared up, screeching, Robert broke cover and charged, jamming the barrel of his cannon against the exposed joint and pulling the trigger. The phalanx convulsed and exploded in a shower of shrapnel. In the ringing silence that followed, Olivia confirmed she had recovered a single, intact file fragment before the terminal blew. It was an asset manifest, detailing a last-ditch effort to save critical technology. It described something called the threshold device, Olivia explained. A method for opening a stable rift between realities. "It has to be our way home." "Where was it moved?" William demanded. Olivia brought up a corrupted map. A single transport route was highlighted, leading deep into a vast expanse of scorched earth. The destination was marked with a single, unambiguous word, Bastion. The treacherous terrain made their shuttle useless for a long-distance journey. They deployed the Triton, a 6-wheeled armored rover, and began a soul-crushing trek across vast plains of Ashold, grimly nicknamed the Ash Sea. Inside, a tense routine formed. William and Amelia shared driving duties, while Robert manned the rear-facing gunner's turret, his eyes perpetually scanning their back trail. Olivia was the vessel's nerve center, surrounded by a nest of flickering monitors, their eyes and ears in the desolation. On the second day, Olivia detected faint, rhythmic energy readings from a ruined town ahead. "The signature is different from the Pharaoh's," she noted. "It's organized." Organized meant intelligence, a potentially greater threat. William made the call, "We go around." Wide berth. The ghostly, unseen heartbeat on Olivia's scanner was a stark reminder that they were not alone. Their path was eventually blocked by an obstacle that dwarfed all others, the Iron Canyon, a colossal, mammoth chasm hundreds of meters deep and several kilometers across. It was a surgical cut across the face of the planet, a scar from the war's most powerful weapons. The great bridge that once spanned it lay in a tangled, skeletal heap at the bottom. "There's no way across," Ami stated flatly. "The old maps show an alternate route," Olivia said, her fingers flying across her console. "A subterranean transit tunnel. Part of the pre-architect maglev system. It runs directly beneath the canyon floor." "A tunnel is a perfect death trap," Robert grunted. "It's the only way," William said, his eyes fixed on the schematic. "We lead the rover and proceed on foot." They descended into the gaping, concrete maw of the tunnel, the heavy clang of the emergency hatch sealing behind them feeling unnervingly final. The tunnel was a cavern of absolute silence and profound blackness, their lights cutting feeble beams through the gloom. Deeper inside, Olivia's voice was a tight whisper in their calms. "I'm picking up a massive energy signature ahead. It's dormant, like a hibernating leviathan." They pressed forward to a vast central hub where the source became apparent. Fused to the tracks and ceiling was a machine unlike the hunters. It was a bulky, arachnid-like chassis bristling not with weapons, but with industrial tools, plasma welders and hydraulic claws. A single, large, blue optic was dark and lifeless. "A warden," Olivia breathed. "An automated maintenance and construction unit. Not a combat model." As if in response, a low hum emanated from the machine. The blue optic flickered to life, flooding the chamber with an eerie, analytical light. It wasn't feral. It was awake. "It's registering our suit systems," Olivia said, her voice rising in alarm. "It sees us as all an anomaly. A system error. Something to be corrected." The warden moved with terrifying, deliberate grace. It wasn't trying to kill them, it was trying to contain them. One arm slammed a blast door shut, cutting off their retreat. Another extended a clawed appendage, not to strike, but to herd them into a side tunnel. It was a monstrously efficient janitor, and they were the mess. The warden's synthesized voice promised not malice, but simple erasure, initiating sanitation protocol. With a final, decisive move, it severed the main power conduit, plunging the hub into a blackness so profound it felt like drowning. Their helmet light sliced through the void, illuminating the terrifying, deliberate advance of the colossal machine. As they fell back, William's light caught a high-voltage conduit on the wall, its casing cracked and arcing with power. "Olivia, can you overload that?" he yelled. "Theoretically. But it will unleash an EMP that will unmake us. We'll be blind, deaf, and primitive in a heartbeat." "Do it," William commanded. "Robert, Amelia, buy her time." It was a suicidal gambit. Robert's pulse cannon hammered into the warden's chassis, the concussive blows making the giant machine pause to assess the new threat. Olivia reached the junction box, ripping the panel off and plunging her hands inside. As the warden's massive claw descended, she slammed a manual contact switch. A silent concussion of pure energy and searing white light erupted from the conduit. Then there was only darkness and a silence so deep it had weight. Their suits were dead, coffins of polymer and steel. They were crippled, for explorers reduced to the technological level of the Stone Age. Cracking open emergency chemistry lights, they cast their faces in an eerie green glow and pressed on through the oppressive dark. After what felt like an eternity, they saw a faint, flickering light ahead, the primal, living dance of a fire. They approached the tunnel exit with caution. In a cavernous space on the other side, human figures moved in the firelight. They were lean, sinewy predators, armed with crude spears and rifles, stripping a fresh hunter carcass for parts with practiced efficiency. These were not survivors, they were apex scavengers. "Got some new fish in the net, boys," a voice scraped through the cavern. They were surrounded. Their leader, a tall man with a latticework of scars and cold, intelligent eyes, stepped forward. "Lost little stars, fallen out of the sky," he said, his gaze lingering on their useless, high-tech armor. "You came through the warden's nest. We saw the flash, heard the silence that came after. You killed it. It wasn't a question. The architect's trash is a problem. You're good at taking out the trash. I'm Silas." He offered a thin, cruel smile. "And I think you and I are going to be very useful to each other." Silas's smile was a fissure in granite. His people moved in with the efficiency of a wolf pack, stripping the crew of their useless rifles and cannon. "The suits, too," Silas ordered. The process was a swift, humiliating violation. Their entire technological soul flensed away, leaving them shivering and vulnerable. They were escorted through the heart of the settlement, a hive stitched together with rust and desperation called the Rust. Silas led them to his command center inside the hollowed-out chassis of a transport crawler. Maps were scratched onto salvaged metal, and trophies of dead machines were mounted like prized hunting kills. He explained that a massive siege unit, a Goliath, blocked his tribe from the region's only clean water source. His fighters' brute force was useless against its impenetrable armor. "I want you to be the scalpel. I'll provide the hammer," Silas corrected when William accused him of wanting them to kill it for him. "My fighters will follow your orders. You will be their tacticians. You secure the water for my people. And what do we get in return?" Amelia's voice was like chips of ice. "You get to live," Silas said, a flicker of appreciation in his eyes. "And," he added, tapping the map, "the Charismatic Guards is on the direct route to Bastion." The deal was laid bare, a suicide mission in exchange for a fairy tale. "We help you kill your Goliath," William said, negotiating as an equal, though he was a captive. "Then you give us supplies, a vehicle, and a guide to get us to Bastion." Silas considered him for a long moment, then gave a sharp nod. "A guide. If you survive. You have 3 days to come up with a plan." Confined to a cold storage bay, the crew planned their next move. "We can't trust him," Amelia warned. "The second that Goliath is scrap, he'll put a spear in our backs. Then we make sure our utility never expires," William counted. He assigned their tasks. Olivia would study the Goliath for weaknesses, while Amelia and Robert would assess and train Silas's best warriors, Kenneth, Eric, and Larry, forging them into a disciplined fighting force. They were no longer explorers. They were consultants on a high-risk contract, their survival depending on becoming too valuable to kill. The next 3 days were a crucible. Olivia, a high priestess in Silas's metal graveyard of a workshop, built a ghost of the Goliath from data and conjecture. "It's a static defender," she explained on the final night. "A very big turtle. And its shell is nearly impenetrable. But it has to vent heat every time it fires. For 5 seconds, its heart is exposed." Meanwhile, Amelia and Robert forged Silas's fighters into something more than a mob. They drilled them on tactical retreats and overlapping fields of fire, translating their raw brutality into focused lethality. William, working with the surprisingly shrewd Silas, planned the assault. It was an audacious, high-wire act. A small team would act as bait to provoke the Goliath into firing, giving the hidden spear team their 5-second window to strike the vents. The morning of the hunt was cold and gray. At the chasm, the Goliath stood like a primordial idol of war, a moving mountain of gunmetal gray armor. "Showtime," William muttered as their vehicle lurched forward, racing towards the behemoth. A heavy machine gun rattled, its bullets sparking harmlessly against the Goliath's hide. With a low hum, its twin kinetic cannons lowered and fired. The shot wasn't a sound, it was a physical event, a fist of compressed air that blasted a crater of molten rock into the canyon wall behind them. "Confirmed." Olivia's voice crackled from the radio relay at the rust. "Massive thermal spike. You have 5 seconds." From the rocks above, Robert, Kenneth, and the others rose as one. A volley of heavy, armor-piercing spears shot towards the Goliath. 2 found purchase, burying themselves like venomous fangs deep within the open vent. The machine shuddered, its analytical blue optic flickering to an enraged, aggressive crimson. It turned its full attention on the spear team, its cannons whining. "They're exposed." Amelia shouted. "We have to draw its fire again." Their driver wrenched the vehicle into the Goliath's line of sight. The cannons fired with a deafening crack. The shell slammed into the ground just in front of them, erupting in a deafening baptism of earth and rock that threw their vehicle sideways. Through the ringing in his ears, William saw the second volley of spears strike home in the same violated wound. There was no cataclysmic explosion. Instead, the Goliath simply died, its crimson eye fading to black as it slumped forward, a dead titan of a forgotten age. As the scavengers erupted in savage, triumphant cheers, a cold knot of dread tightened in William's stomach. They had taught wolves how to hunt a dragon. Victory tasted like ash. During the savage, joyous revelry that night, William saw the ambition kindling in Silas's eyes. For a week, they traveled through the desolate wasteland, the journey a grueling exercise in tension and monotony. The crew learned to trust Ava's instincts, but she remained a cipher, a closed book. The landscape changed to the melt, a jagged, black expanse of superheated glass where the journey slowed to a torturous crawl. It was here that the long fuse finally burned down. 2 fast-moving plumes of dust appeared on the horizon. "Scrappers," Eva said, a flicker of fear in her eyes. They took a defensive position behind a ridge of black rock as the scrappers, howling like hunters, closed in. Robert vaporized their first vehicle with the rover's cannon, but the second was smarter, taking cover and unleashing a hail of fire. "Their vehicle is shielded," Olivia shouted. "Jury-rigged from a warden." As grenades hammered their position, their power flickering, Eva grabbed William's arm. Her impassive mask was shattered. She was pointing at the rover's console, where a single, small icon was flashing. "He gave us back our rover," she whispered, her voice filled with dawning horror. He gave us a full fusion core. He gave us his best guide. She finally looked at him, her eyes filled with a terrible understanding. It's not a guide he gave us. It's a leash. The icon was a tracking beacon. On the horizon, a third, much larger dust plume was rising. It was Silas and his war party, coming not to save them, but to claim the spoils. The revelation struck with the force of a physical blow. Silas had used them to kill the Goliath, then used the scrappers to bleed them out. Trapped between the fanatics and the approaching warlord, they had seconds to act. Then we give them a new god to worship. Amelia's voice cut through the chaos, her eyes on the scrapper's shielded vehicle. Following a desperate plan, William and Eva laid down covering fire. Robert launched himself out into the maelstrom, his heavy plasma rifle already shouldered. Ignoring the projectiles kicking up dust around him, he dropped to one knee. The shot was a brilliant, searing needle of blue-white light that struck the shield projector, collapsing it with a sound like shattering glass. Amelia, already anticipating the move, swiveled the main cannon and blew the now unprotected vehicle apart in a massive volleyball. The fanatics faltered, their holy relic destroyed. Before they could rally, Silas's war party roared over the ridge, falling upon the remaining scrappers with the brutal, merciless efficiency the crew had taught them. The short, bloody skirmish was over in minutes. Silas dismounted, his face triumphant. "Impressive," he said as his fighters surrounded them. "The deal has evolved. You aren't just tacticians. You are the architect of my new world." His eyes were alight with a terrifying, messianic fire. "You have no ship, no allies, no choice." Eva stepped forward, her rifle leveled at Silas's chest. "You used us. There's no honor in that." As the standoff reached its peak, Olivia's voice echoed from the rover's external speakers. "Commander, Silas wasn't the only one tracking us. Something else was, too." An image appeared on the rover's monitor, a clean, pre-architect signal. "It's an automated summons," Olivia explained, her voice trembling. "Broadcasting for a century, waiting for our biosignatures." She overlaid the signal on a topographical map. It was located deep beneath a nearby mesa, marked with a single, unambiguous word, Bastion. As if summoned, a low, grinding sound echoed from the mesa. A section of the rock face, impossibly large, retracted, revealing a cavernous opening bathed in clean, white light. The legend was real. While Silas and his men stared in awe, William seized the moment. "It seems our business is concluded, Silas." He led his crew to the rover and sped towards the light, escaping just as the colossal doors to the legendary bunker sealed shut behind them. Inside the pristine, silent facility, they were greeted by the caretaker, a benign, isolated remnant of the original architect AI. It explained that it had guarded the threshold device, their portal home, for over a century, awaiting their arrival as the designated recovery team. The device was tuned to their specific quantum frequency, a keyhole that only they could open. In the center of a massive chamber, they saw it, a perfect orb of absolute black, pulsing with a quiet, cosmic heartbeat. As the caretaker prepared to activate the sequence that would open a rift home, a proximity alert blared. On a view screen, they saw that Silas, using a crude kinetic cannon based on their Goliath strategy, had blasted open Bastion's main gate. His army was pouring into the pristine bay. "He'll never let us go," Robert snarled. As the battle for Bastion began in the corridors behind them, William turned to Eva. "Come with us. Start over." Eva looked at the view screen, at the brutal, familiar violence of her world invading this place of impossible peace. Her face hardened, the brief flicker of a lost child replaced by the steel of the survivor. "My world is a ruin," she said, her voice firm as she unslung her rifle. "But it is my ruin. Go. Live in yours. I will buy you the time you need." She didn't wait for an argument. Sprinting back down the corridor towards the sound of the fighting, a lone ghost choosing to defend a tomb from the monsters of her own world. The crew scrambled into the Triton as the threshold device cracked open, revealing a swirling vortex of starlight, the beautiful, chaotic light of their own home. They plunged the rover into the rift and emerged, skidding to a halt on soft, damp grass under a brilliant blue sky. The portal vanished behind them. They had made it. They had survived. But the victory felt hollow. They had escaped the wasteland, but its ghosts, the memory of Ava's sacrifice and the knowledge of Silas, a tyrant of their own making, would ride with them forever. Their journey was over, but its consequences had just begun.